This is a hunter. For most of human history, humans were hunters and gatherers, surviving by chasing wild animals and gathering fruit and plants. But around 12,000 years ago, something remarkable happened. This is a farmer. Humans invented farming. They domesticated animals and grew their own food. They settled down, and in the process, they sparked the first revolution in human history. Hi, it's me, and this is my channel. This is the story of how farming sparked the first revolution. Before farming, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. In other words, we hunted animals for food and gathered fruits and nuts and berries and stuff. And this was good because we didn't have to spend all our time looking for food. That would have been exhausting, but there were problems. If there wasn't enough food where we were, we had to move and we couldn't stay in one place for too long, or we'd use up all the food there. Plus, we couldn't really defend ourselves against other humans or wild animals. We were kind of defenseless. But then something incredible happened. Somewhere in the Middle East, humans began to domesticate animals. They tamed them so that they could help humans. They also started raising those animals for food. And at the same time, they began experimenting with growing their own food, planting seeds and harvesting crops. It's not exactly clear why. Maybe it just kind of happened accidentally. Maybe humans realized that if they planted seeds, they'd have more food. Or maybe they learned from watching animals. Animals eat plants, so maybe humans figured they could grow the plants and then eat the plants. Anyway, humans started to raise their own food and domesticate animals, and then something remarkable happened. Humans settled down. They built villages and towns and cities. They no longer had to wander around chasing food. Instead, they could stay in one place and farm that land. And because they were no longer constantly on the move, they were much safer from wild animals and other humans. Farming sparked the first revolution in human history. It completely changed the way humans lived. One of the first places where humans domesticated animals and grew crops was the Middle East. In modern-day Iraq, Jordan, Israel, and Syria, humans first domesticated sheep and goats. A little later, they domesticated cows, pigs, and chickens. Meanwhile, in China, humans domesticated pigs and chickens, but they didn't raise cows or sheep. In both places, humans domesticated horses. Humans everywhere seemed to like horses. The next big innovation was the plow. The plow made it much easier to turn over the soil and plant seeds. The first plows were made of wood, but eventually humans figured out how to make plows out of metal. This made farming much easier and more efficient. It's hard work to farm without a plow. You've got to turn the soil over with your hands. It's called hand plowing. Eventually, humans invented things to make plowing even easier, like the iron plow. The good news is that farming led to more food. In fact, it led to lots and lots of food. Because of farming, humans could grow more food than they needed, and they could store that extra food. And that means that some people didn't have to spend all their time farming. They could do other things. They could make tools or jewelry or clothes. They could do pretty much whatever they wanted. Because farming led to more food, humans started living longer and healthier lives. They also had more kids. And because there were more humans and they weren't constantly on the move, humans started working together in larger groups. They formed clans and then tribes and then nations. In other words, farming led to bigger communities, and bigger communities meant bigger cities, which meant bigger civilizations. And that brings us to today. Most of us live in places that were once farmland. Our ancestors farmed these lands hundreds or thousands of years ago. Some of us even farm today. Farming is still important, but now big machines do most of the work. It's much easier to be a farmer today than it was 10,000 years ago. Farming sparked the first revolution. It led to bigger communities, bigger cities, new technologies, and new jobs. It changed the way humans lived. And almost all of us can trace our family histories back to farmers. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors may have lived 10,000 or more years ago, but our farmer ancestors are much closer. They lived just a few thousand years ago. Our farmer ancestors were the first revolutionaries. They changed the world, and in the process, they changed our lives forever. Okay, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.